Hey guys, it's Coach Powell. We're coming to you live for another edition, another episode, if you prefer, of Coffee Tea You and Me. Every week, every Friday from 3 to 5, I try to get online and share some ideas and concepts with entrepreneurs, business leaders, SWAM business leaders specifically. SWAM, that means small, women-owned, and minority-owned businesses from all over the country. We try to make sure that we stay on top of the information and the news that's relevant. We try to make sure that we participate in discussions and opportunities that make sense for business leaders. And today's show is no different. Today, we're going to be talking about how to maximize the value of your professional relationships. Now, we're entering a 5-part series. We did an overview of this last week. So if you didn't get a chance to catch last week's show and you want to just catch up to where we're going and what we're talking about and the overall encompassing view of what we're talking about, you might want to go back and check last week's show, either on YouTube or on Facebook. And today we're going to be delving into our second part of the series, but it's actually the beginning of the meat of the information. So we're going to be talking about, and over the next few weeks, literally, we're going to be talking about 20 different aspects, ideas, concepts, strategy that you need to use before you begin a networking process. No, in order for you to put together your networking game plan, in order for you to come up with a good overall networking strategy, you're going to need to practice all 20 of these steps that we're talking about. And they're really not steps as much as they're, again, various different ideas and concepts. And they have no particular order. So you can't go, okay, I did step one, I did number one, and now I'm going to do number two. No. This is 20 random ideas, but they're all important and powerful ideas when it comes to learning how and what you should do with networking. Now, it's coming from my brand new workshop that I'm still putting together called the 20 most high-powered concepts of creating a networking strategy for yourself. Now, this is like sort of the prequel to the 9 steps to networking, which is something that I created, a process I created a while back ago. But I realized that if you don't have the right concepts and ideas in place before you start, you're really not going to get the benefit of what's going on in your networks. And so I hope you guys are ready. If you haven't already, grab yourself some pen, some paper. Get ready to pay attention and engage. I'll have the chat rocking and rolling. I'll be asking empowering questions in the chat room that you can engage and talk about and work with. And then I'll be answering any questions that you have as well. So feel free to log in and check in on Facebook or LinkedIn. Or don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll be reminding you of that constantly. I need to make sure that you hit that subscribe button, because as we grow this community, we're going to be growing opportunities for everyone. Okay, so right after today's opening message, here you go. And we are back. Okay, so let's get right into today's topic. Today's topic, maximizing the value of your professional relationships, really is going to delve into 4 to 5 key ideas. And those ideas are literally understanding how introverts network. The reason why that's empowering and why we should talk about that. 1, I'm an introvert. But number 2, everybody can network. And sometimes introverts don't feel like they can network or don't feel like they are approaching it correctly. And so that makes them very hesitant. We're going to talk about what to do and how to blast through that. If you are an introvert, you need to know this. If you are an extrovert, you still need to know what we're going to talk about today. And we'll share with you why. We're going to talk about how to create an overall strategy, why it's important that your networking strategy should be comprehensive and it should be overall, right? It should include a lot of effective principles, a lot of values that you've already kind of worked through before you begin, and it needs to be well written, right? It needs to be well written, well documented, because this is going to give you an opportunity to share. We'll talk about that too. We're going to talk about effective execution. It doesn't matter if you have a great plan. It doesn't matter if you think you know what you're doing. Being able to execute to the highest level and why you should is an important thing to think about when it comes to networking, because if you get this wrong, you may not have an opportunity to get it right. If you meet the right person and you say the wrong things, or you have the wrong timing or the wrong impact, then the results could be disastrous, and it could stop you dead cold in your tracks from achieving your goals and your dreams, and you don't want that to happen. So being able to be effective in execution is critically important. And then we're going to talk about, what do you do when you've lost that faith in others? What do you do when you have, somehow gotten to a point where, you're not sure whether your friends and family are really with you, the associates that you used to have, you're just not, you don't know how to do that. You got to rebrand, and you got to rebuild those relationships. And sometimes just building them from the right way, from scratch all over again, right? You have to think about all those types of things. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about nurturing proactive values. How do you keep the best of you in front of your every networking activity? How do you keep yourself moving forward? How do you keep yourself right in the pocket where you want to be when it comes to creating valuable networks? So let's get started. For those of you all who don't know, you can always check in with me in the chat boxes. We're going to have them available for you on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So not LinkedIn, I'm sorry, Facebook and YouTube. So make sure that you log in there if you haven't already. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you're from. Just check in. If you have some information that you want to share about yourself or your business, feel free to do so. And I want you to be unencumbered in that way. I don't want you to think, well, I can't share this, I can't say this, I can't do this. Go ahead and share whatever you need to share, because my personal values are always about small, women-owned, minority-owned businesses, and we need every voice we possibly can to get our messages out, to get our brands out. If there's something that you want to share, at a discount or a service or some marketing process you want to share, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Give us the links so that people can participate. And if it's good stuff, I will put you on the big screen. So, I'm waiting for you to jump on in and have a ball with me. Okay. So phase one, what are we talking about? We're talking about the introvert advantage. What does it mean to be an introvert? And how do introverts network differently? How should they network differently than extroverts? Now, a couple facts about introverts. One, they make up well over 60% of the population. So most of us are introverts. Very few people are extroverts. And introverts often, when it comes to networking, get a bad rap because, we're accused of being aloof, shy, uncaring, unfeeling, kind of distant and cold, right? And that's a big hurdle to get over, because if you've embraced that stereotype of what you are, once you've decided or been labeled or whatever that is, however you came to the thought process that you're an introvert, that kind of the facts of that can tend to put you in a box and keep you from performing in the skills that you need to perform in to be excellent at networking. This could be traumatic and dramatic in a lot of ways. If in order for you to get the right kinds of attention, that you have to extend yourself socially more than you're comfortable in doing so, you're going to need to figure out ways to overcome that. You're going to need to figure out ways to deal with that, because it is true. For most introverts, social situations are difficult. We don't necessarily gravitate towards higher and higher social engagement. In fact, it's just the opposite for us. We like and enjoy being alone. We enjoy coming up with our ideas, coming up with our strategies, our techniques, or whatever, our tactics, whatever we want to do, and then sort of playing with them ourselves. We're usually pretty good artists, pretty good musicians. We like to spend a lot of time alone in contemplation, reviewing what's going on, seeing what's happening around us. And we really don't need a lot of feedback from the rest of the community in order to feel good about ourselves. Now that's problematic because that natural inclination to be alone makes it difficult for others who need to know who we are and what we can offer and what we bring to the table to know. And so we have to do things to overcome that. And I'm going to suggest that there are some distinct advantages to being an introvert that people don't actually know, or don't give enough credit to if they do know when it comes to networking. And it's not all gloom and doom and fear and, all the kind of good stuff. So let me just tell you a couple things. Introverts don't usually share unless they think they have something meaningful to offer. They're not really going to stand on the tallest mountain and shout from the highest hill, I'm the greatest thing since sliced cheese. I got this wonderful idea. You really got to do this. Sometimes you got to pull that out of introverts. So when you're working with introverts, you're going to have to go a little deeper to get that real meat, to get the real stuff that you want to get, which is the resources, quite frankly. You want their time, their talent, their treasure, and you want to know exactly what the quality of those three things are so that you can, literally work with them and interact with them in a way that's going to be useful to you. In order to do that, you got to be a little introspective yourself, and you got to be willing to dig and dig deep with an introvert, because they're not going to just come off the top with everything they have to offer, every strength they have. Now, what's good about introverts is they know what those strengths are. They tend to know who they are, what they can bring to the table with a level of confidence, and they don't overshoot the runway. They know exactly what kind of participation, what type of contribution they could make in almost any situation. They're just not going to broadcast that. They're going to need somebody else to broadcast their skills and talents, and they're going to need, if you're interested in working with them, you're going to need to dig a little deeper and listen real hard to really get that from them. So that's advantage number one. There's the well runs deep with introverts. However, you're going to have to dig in order to get to it, in order to get to that water, right? In order to get that refreshment and that what you need from them. So it's very, very important that you know how to listen and listen well, even if you're dealing with an extrovert, because an extrovert may give you a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of, I would consider it noise. All right. Just be honest. Right. But they're going to give you a lot to think about and a lot to dig through. And you have to be almost like a scientist when it comes to just trying to find, okay, what's relevant, what's meaningful here. An introvert's probably not going to give you that much information. They're going to give you, boom, this is the straight truth. This is what it's going to be about. And I'm done talking. Right. So you're going to want to make sure that you really dig deep with an introvert. Ask lots of questions. The best in me comes out, especially as a teacher or a trainer, when people ask me questions. Because I have an answer. I have an idea, I have a thought, and I haven't always, I don't always know what you're thinking. And so I can't always predict what you're going to say, what you're going to do. So it's very important as an introvert, I need my partners, my collaborators to be willing to be interested enough and engaging enough to go deep with me. Because other than that, it's surface level conversation, which quite frankly doesn't interest me, which is, because I'm running on very, very small social batteries when it comes to that, right? So I don't have a lot of social energy to share, but I do have to make sure that I'm not doing something incorrectly. Just hold on a second for you guys. I got to do something real quick. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So it's very important that when you're working with introverts, you kind of know that their bag of tricks kind of go pretty deep, but you're going to get more if you're interested in them. Now, on the flip side, introverts have a lot more to share than they usually let on, right? And so you're going to have to, and if you're an introvert, you're going to have to ask yourself, really, what is it that I have to contribute? What is it that I bring to the table that is unique, that is special? And you probably know it, but you're going to have to write it down and get used to speaking it out loud. Get used to practice saying what it is that you give, what it is that you do, what it is that you're special in, because that's not going to be something that comes naturally to you. And so you're going to want to, script out a dialogue and use a good story format that's going to help you explain every point that you want to make. Because if you don't, then people are not going to know how to take advantage of what you bring to the table and what you have to offer. Thank you, Tasha. I see you out there. I saw your little note come up. Thank you very much for your engagement. Really appreciate it. Any questions anybody has, by the way, throw them in the chat. And anybody want to make any announcements of anything that they're doing, anything they got going on in their lives or their business, again, put it in the chat. Put it, if you want people to connect with you on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, go ahead and put the links in the chat. That's a good thing to have happen. Another thing that happens with introverts is that we're very, very low maintenance when it comes to our colleagues and our friends. We don't ask a lot from other people, right? We don't ask a lot of other people. And even if we have high expectations, we're not really going to share them as much as others might do, right? So, because we like to sit back and watch. We're people watchers. We like to sit back and see what's going on and understand where all the T's are, where all the bones are buried and what's really happening. And we like to make our educated guesses, and we love to prove ourselves right. When something goes wrong, we're like, oh yeah, see, I knew that was going to happen. And, that's important to us. It's important to us to be a sort of a watcher, sort of a voyeur, so to speak, when it comes to dealing with people, especially extroverts. And so it's important for you. How do you take advantage of that, right? We can easily be taken for granted. Don't do it, because we're not gonna jump up and down and go me. Pay attention to me. Listen to me. I'm credible. I'm useful. If we get a whiff or even a sense that you're not interested, we're not going to engage, and that might not be something that you want. So you have to really, really make sure that when you work, you can get a lot from an introvert, but you just have to pay attention to them, and you have to pay attention in the way they want to be paid attention to, right? If you make the mistake of over engaging with an introvert too far, too fast, too soon, you're going to scare them away. They're going to back up socially instead of coming to you socially, because they're not going to feel understood. They're going to feel assaulted. And what you're going for is a feeling of understanding, right? Introverts are very creative, and they have very, very original minds. They really think outside the box. And so, again, you can get some of the best ideas if you can get them to engage with you. And they're pretty good at doing that. Idea sharing, people sharing, everything that networking is all about. You can get introverts pretty much have the skills and the talents. They just don't necessarily have the ability, the showmanship, so to speak. They don't want to get on the stage. They don't want to. They're good. They know what they're doing, and they know they're good. They just want to sit back and relax and enjoy what they're talking about, what's going on around them, more so than engage and get involved, and for them, enjoyment is engagement, which is another little introvert tip that I want to give you guys. They're shrewd decision makers and problem solvers. You give an introvert a problem, and the introvert will take that problem and work on it and focus on it and put all the effort and energy that they've been able to store up on it, and they will have an answer for you. But again, you still got to go and get it. You got to be interested enough to really, really grab hold of that idea. And they're going to expect that, you do something with it. They're going to expect that you give them the feedback that lets them know that their time wasn't wasted. Because if they feel like their time was wasted, or they feel like they were disrespected in any way, shape, or form, again, they're going to back away instead of coming close. So you need to know how to deal with that if you're ever dealing with an introvert. They have an ability to listen like nobody's business. We're laser focused on, especially if we have an agenda, if we have a thought something that we're trying to figure out or trying to get in front of, we're going to hear it across the room. We're going to hear it if we're on a Zoom call and there's 50 people on the Zoom call and we got them all on the screen. We're going to notice, especially the people that we're trying to pay attention to. We're going to notice what they're up to. We're going to notice what's going on in their background. We're going to notice everything because we're paying attention. And it's taking a lot of energy for us to pay attention. So it's really, really something that, you need to respect when it comes to that. Now, that means we're going to be great on teams. We're going to be great helping making decisions. We're going to be great with customer service. We're going to be great with managing and supervising. We're going to be great with sales because we're going to know when to hold them and when to fold them, so to speak. Those of us who have more or higher levels of social intelligence are really going to be good at going, okay, it's time to back away. It's time not to press. It's time to shut up and just listen. It's time to just be quiet and allow another person to think and give them that space, because we know how to appreciate that space that you need to maybe gather your thoughts or really, really understand what you're going to say, where you're coming from before you say it. By the way, that's another thing that we value. We value being reflective, and we value making sure that before we have a knee-jerk reaction to something, we value making sure we have a response versus a reaction. That's a key thing to dealing with introverts. They don't want to react. They don't want to be reactive. So they're not going to be, jumping all over down with the emotional scale. Right? They're going to want to be responsive. So the information or ideas you get from them, if you give them time to consider it, are going to be much different and higher quality than if you pounce on them and say, I need your ideas, I need your thoughts right now, this very second. Well, I haven't had a chance to really percolate it yet, so I don't really know what. If I talk to you now, I'll give you an answer. It might be an okay answer, it might be a pretty good answer, but it's not going to be my best answer, because my best answer is going to be a considered one. It's going to be one where I had a chance to sit down and reflect and think about it, and then share it with you. So give an introvert some time. If you're an extrovert, by the way, give them a little bit more time than you think you should give them. And they'll appreciate that. They'll respect you for that, because then they'll go deep for you and they'll give you the best that they have to give. We're great at cultivating relationships once we get into the relationship. We're not necessarily good at starting new relationships, but we're great at cultivating relationships. So if you have an existing relationship and it's not going the way you want it to go, give that problem to an introvert. That introvert is probably going to tell you, okay, I think here's where you went wrong. Here's where you might have gone wrong. And here's what you can do to fix it. This has happened to me, or it's never happened to me because I do this. I'm proactive in this way. And so this doesn't happen to me, but I can tell you this is what you didn't do. And now you have to go back and you have to fix it, and this is how you might want to fix it. And we're going to be pretty good at that, because we just have a way of sitting back and watching before we do anything. Now, that's also a disadvantage for introverts, because sometimes we might spend too much time in rumination and consideration of some idea or concept before we will share. I don't know if anybody's had any problems with that, but if you're an introvert, go ahead and raise your hand, out there in the world, put it in the chat. Let us know. Introverts, I think introverts rule the world, but who am I? I'm just one guy, right? So it's very, very important. The next thing that you want to think about doing, and it has nothing to do with being an introvert, this is just the next phase of ideas we're going to be talking about and sharing, is creating a powerful strategy. I cannot impress upon you more how important it is that you have a great strategy in place if you're going to embark upon a networking situation. Let me tell you why. People tend to approach networking and they're all over the place. They don't really know what they want. They don't really know why they're there. They don't really know what they're trying to get into. They don't know, even if they do, they don't know how to share it or speak it correctly. And so networking is a joint thing, right? It's a partnership. It's a dance. It's you want to dance with people, obviously, who know how to dance, right? You don't want to dance with people who are just kind of fumbling around. And the more skilled you have, the more skilled you are at this thing, the further you can get with people faster if they're also skilled. And so we really don't like, if you don't have a strategy in place, you're going to get bombarded with a lot of energy from other people. And it might not be the right kind of energy. It might not set you up correctly or the way you need to be set up when it comes to the two things that you can get from networking, which is the right relationships with the right people. That's thing one. Thing two is the right information that you need to move yourself forward. If you can strike the balance between the right information and the right people, then you're going to be phenomenally successful. In fact, 9 times more successful than those who don't. Now, let me tell you why it's important when it comes to strategy, why I'm telling you this. We've already known that people who establish goals for their lives and for their businesses are 6 times more successful than those who don't. Now, on top of that, you can increase that another 3 times. You can get to 9 times more successful if you then add quality professional relationships with others. So you can quicken the pace of your networking success or your life skills or the development of anything you want to do by networking well, by having a good strategy, a good plan, a good rule book, so to speak, or access to information, whatever you need to have. You'll have a lot more of it, a lot faster, in a more meaningful, powerful way than if you just jump in the deep end and go, okay, I'm going to figure out how to swim now, right? It's almost like you got to figure out how you're going to float before you can figure out how you're going to do the back pedal, a backstroke, and then you have to figure out how you can turn over and flip over, and then now you can do the doggy paddle, and pretty soon you're doing, a real swim stroke, right? And then you're swimming lanes, and then you're speeding up, and then you're working on your breathing technique, and all that. All those things have to come in steps and phases. If you just jump in the deep end, you might figure out how to swim, but you're not going to be good at it. Trust me, I know. I know this for a fact because this happened to me. I thought I was a self-taught swimmer, and I figured I know how to swim. When I went to the Army and we had amphibious training, and they asked me to rate myself in the category of a strong swimmer versus a weak swimmer, and nobody wanted to be a weak swimmer. So I was like, I'm a strong swimmer, and I got in the line with the strong swimmers and figured out pretty quickly once I got in the water, guess what? I'm a weak swimmer. I'm not a strong swimmer. I don't know what I'm doing in the water because I've never been technically trained to do so. Networking is the same. If you jump into this thing, you're going to make a ton of mistakes, and you're not going to have an opportunity necessarily to get it right. So you need a plan. You need a plan of action. You need a way to bounce that ideas and off of other people, and really a strategy that's going to work for you. Now, having a strategy is one thing. Executing on that strategy is something completely different, because it's easy to plan. I'm a planner. I'm a planner. I'm a schemer. I'm a dreamer. I'm always writing down new techniques, new strategy. In fact, as a coach, it's kind of my job to help people figure out how to execute their own strategy, right? Help them create a strategy, and then how to execute that strategy, because that's how you grow and you develop. Now, a couple things about effective execution. If you're executing something, and this is a thought I really want you to embrace. And this is the thought. It comes from a quote, by the way, by it's an African proverb that says, "Where the water is boss, the land must obey." Where the water is boss, the land must obey. So you think about it, I have a nice little illustration here that I'll share with you guys once I've developed the complete workshop. But I have a nice little illustration of just a beautiful waterfall. And the waterfall is, coming through a nice carved canyon, and the rocks are exquisite, and they're wonderful, and they're like, woo, amazing. And you can see the real power of nature, the real power of water, the real strength of something that's forceful, but its plan, the water's plan, is to get to the sea. That's where the water's going, right? It knows, intrinsically, it's going to follow the fastest route down right? From higher elevations to lower elevations till it gets to a point where it's at the sea or it's at a lake, right? That's what water wants to do. Water wants to go to the lowest elevation possible. And anything that's in the way of water eventually is going to be worn out, worn smooth, carved out. Canyons are going to get carved out. Hills are going to be destroyed. Everything is going to get out of the way for water, because where water is boss, land must obey. So if you think about that when it comes to your networking strategy, your job is to win. Your job is to become the highest form of yourself possible. And how are you going to do that without a strategy? How are you going to do that without a plan? How are you going to do that without some form of measurement? How are you going to do that without making adjustments as you find obstacles along the way? You know, are you as strong as water? Are you in charge? Are you the boss of your universe? Can you direct yourself to move in the right direction, in the right situation, in the right pattern? There's no wrong with water. It just does what it's supposed to do. And the land conforms to it. When you think about it, your networking strategy should work the same way. If you believe that there's a sense of purpose for what you're doing, you believe that there's a sense of destiny for what you're doing, and there's a direction that you need to be moving in, then you're going to see some landmarks. You're going to see some goals that you're knocking out. You're going to see some people that you probably are going to align with, and you're going to move directly to those things. You're not going to try to wander around and meander and try to figure it out along the way. I mean, yes, there's going to be some figuring out along the way. But I would suggest that you figure it out before you get started, because at least you know what direction you're going into, and at least you know you have some idea of what you might need to do to conquer that first obstacle that you can see, or whatever obstacles you can see. You might be able to realize that I'm gonna need some resources to handle these obstacles, whatever the obstacles might be. It might be I don't have enough information. I might not have the right relationships, or I have the right relationships, but I haven't created the right environment where I can get the information I need from those relationships, so that I could shore up the possibilities. Or I might not have the right team with me, or might not have the right people, you know, we're working together collaboratively to accomplish something, and something's missing, so I need to figure that out too. All that comes from good planning. If you don't have a good plan, it's very, very difficult for you to do it. And you need to know how to execute. Now let's talk about that. Execution and knowing that you can execute comes from experience, comes from wisdom, either yours or someone else's, and it comes from practice and rehearsal. You have to daily, weekly, monthly do skill drills with yourself, something that you can do, or with other people, with an accountability partner, anything you can do to practice. So one of the things I love about the roundtable, and a lot of my members, they may not get this right away, but over time they do get it, that every week we get together and we practice the skills required to be a phenomenal networker. And if you're a person that others like engaging with and like giving information to and are available for feedback, then you're going to get the feedback that lets you know what you did well, what you didn't do so well, or you need to make some adjustments, and people will tell you. But you've got to fully engage in order to get that benefit. Because if you don't, people are going to go, well, maybe they really don't want to know. Maybe they don't really care that much. I don't really want to waste my time. Because again, most people are introverts, and you're dealing with people who aren't going to come to the table and to tell you what's wrong. You got to create the feedback environment, that environment that says, you know, we want to help you, we want to support you, we want to give you what you need to let you know what's working and what's not working, at least for us, so that we can help you figure out how to be better. And in doing so, we become better networkers. It's really an environment where we can practice, where we can rehearse, where we can try things out, where we can ask questions, where we can get involved, and other people are doing the same thing. So we're all kind of helping each other in that regard become better and better and better. Now, every once in a while, when you're out there networking, it just happens. People make mistakes. They do things that they shouldn't do. They do things incorrectly. They do things to diminish your faith in them. And when that happens, the person who has no longer, or who doesn't have the right kinds of faith in you, isn't necessarily going to tell you, well, you've disappointed me and I've lost faith in you. They're just going to act like it. So I'm going to give you some tips and some techniques to get in front of that. One, so it happens less and less and less, the better you build your skills in this environment. But more importantly, when it does happen, you know exactly what to do. So let's talk about how to be preventative. A good question to ask your networking partners is this: have you ever lost faith in someone in your inner circle? What exactly did they do to make you lose heart in them, to make you move away from them, to make you not trust them? And then listen. Ask the question and listen, and tell them if they want to know, well, why are you asking me? So, well, I want to make sure I don't mess up with you. I want to make sure that whatever we have when it comes to our professional relationship is strong. And if I know what takes you in the wrong direction, then it'll help me avoid that. I'll consider that like a stop sign, right? And I'll avoid that and make sure that I deal with that correctly, right? It's very, very important. If you don't have these kinds of quality conversations about your professional relationships and how you're moving forward in them, I think you're missing a great opportunity to disclose and to share real, authentic, emotional intelligence with each other, so that you know how each other ticks, because everybody's different in this regard. What it's going to take to have me trust you is going to be different than what's going to take to have someone else trust you. And what's going to take to maintain the trust with me is going to be different than it takes to maintain the trust with other people. And so your networking is very much an individualized sport. I know sometimes people see it as mass marketing. It's not. It's individual influence is what it is. And being able to influence someone without manipulating them, and being allowing yourself to be influenced by others without feeling manipulated, is a very, very delicate balance, because you have to be good at discerning what is too much, what is not enough, what is the appropriate approach, what is the wrong approach. And sometimes when people are used to giving you feedback, right, on what's working, what's not working, then you're going to get there with them. You're going to grow your relationship faster because they feel comfortable sharing the authentic truth with you. And if your networking relationships or your professional relationships are not based on what you both perceive as truth, then I got a feeling that it's on a shaky situation. And when you discover it, then the disappointment sets in. Like, I thought they were this person, or I thought they believed in these things, or I thought they were this kind of professional, and I see that they're not, and I don't know how to handle that. And so I no longer feel safe in dealing with them. And you have to be careful to up front in a relationship, really figure it out. What is it that's going to take this relationship in the wrong direction versus the right direction? Now that takes courage to ask that question in the first place. And it takes courage also to answer that question. So the more you are allowing yourself to be courageous up front in a relationship, you're stretching yourself into that area, then you're going to see explosive growth in terms of connection and being trusted and trustworthy by yourself and others. Okay, so now let's say you broke it. The relationship is stalled. It's reached a stagnant point where you can't motivate this person to do anything of value for you, and you're not willing to do anything of value for that other person for whatever reason. Something is wrong, right? The relationship is not progressing. It's not moving forward. So the first thing I'm going to tell you need to do is you need to take responsibility for it. Now, I understand it may not be your fault. You may not have done anything that you would consider wrong. You may not have done anything that that person would consider wrong. It might be some things external to either one of you that's happening with that person that's keeping your relationship from progressing and moving forward at a pace or at a rate or at a quality that you would want it to move forward. But the key is engagement. And the way you engage is by taking responsibility for what happened or didn't happen or might have happened to damage the forward momentum of the relationship. And here's what I suggest you say, right? This has worked for me. I've done it 1,000 times. Listen, I got a sense that something went wrong in the trajectory of our relationship and we've gotten somehow off path. And maybe I did something that I shouldn't have done. I zigged when I should have zagged, or I said something that was kind of crazy and out there. And if I have, I just want you to know, I apologize because I absolutely respect you and I appreciate you. And I want to make sure that our relationship is good and we're moving forward. I've had that happen so many times, even when I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, that other person hasn't done anything wrong. I just knew the relationship wasn't moving at a pace, at a speed, and in a direction where I thought it was going to move. And so instead of pushing blame or shame on someone else, I apologize. I'm taking responsibility for it, just in case I might have done something that would cause it to happen, because that would have not been my intention. So people will say, well, you're not being authentic. It's not a real apology. Yes, it is. Because my intention is for a relationship to move forward. And for some reason, the relationship is not moving forward. And it takes two to tango. So it must be partially my fault. When I didn't notice something, I didn't appreciate something, I didn't say something didn't happen. And the more I take responsibility for it, the less guilty the other party might feel about it, the less shame they may feel about it, the less fear or hesitation they may have. And you want to take people out of shame, blame, and fear. The better you get at doing that and allowing people to come closer to you, then the better you're gonna have better relationships, better quality relationships with people, and they're gonna get there faster, right? If you extend yourself authentically to make sure that you're always thinking about the relationship itself, then of course the relationship automatically includes the persons and the people in the relationship, including yourself. But they need time and attention. They need nurturing, and you have to give that to them. You can't just shake and bake relationships. You have to put the effort and energy into them. You can do it quickly. I don't buy that myth that it takes time to build relationships. It takes acceptance, tolerance, and the willingness to build a relationship, to get a relationship. People have to care about it. They have to want it, and they have to do what they need to do to get it, to create relationships. I've created relationships with people who don't look like me, don't think like me, don't have the same political ideologies I have, or much different from me in almost every respect. But we've created a professional relationship. Why? Because we recognize we need each other. We need something from each other. I need something from them. They need something from me. And collectively, we can get someplace. And much faster than we could as individuals, right? So those are some of the thoughts and principles that go. Now, once you've taken responsibility for the situation, you're going to have a much different conversation than if you try to push blame or shame or fear on someone else. So take responsibility for it and open up that dialogue and get that feedback from them. Get them to start to assess. Maybe they had never thought about it. Like, you know what? I never really thought about it, but yeah, we need to do this, that, and the other. Let's do that. So now what you're doing is you're making a promise. You're making a commitment to move something forward. And you're not holding on to the baggage of yesteryear or whatever happened. You don't have to discuss what happened, really. You just take responsibility for it. You just have to be open to engaging with the person and moving the relationship forward. If you're thinking it like that, then it's much different. It's just like, the salesperson would always say something to the effect of, if I show you what I'm about to show you right now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you right now, Would it be possible for us to work together? Do you see us working together in the future? Can I get your business? Right? They're asking for what they want next constantly in the sales process. It's no different in the relationship process. You have to ask for what you want. I want this relationship to grow. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be interesting. I want it to be useful for both of us, and I want to make sure that I'm doing whatever I need to do. I think I'm doing it. I think I'm doing blah, blah, blah. Is there anything else that you think about that I could do? If I do that kind of thing, are we going to be good? Good, good, good. And you can make a promise, you can make a commitment, and you can honor that promise and that commitment, and you can move forward in your relationship. That's how you rebuild the faith and trust that may have been broken or lost, or maybe never there really there in the first place. Take responsibility for it and move that thing forward. Do what you have to do. Ask the questions that you need to ask. This is very difficult for a lot of people because you really have to care about the other person in order to get this right. Now, there's lots of studies on faith and trust and how it's built and what happens to break it, what happens to fix it. And I'm not going to go into to the 6 phases of faith. How you get from I don't know you, I don't like you, to I trust you, I believe in you, and I'm willing to support you. There are really 6 phases you can go through. And if you went through all those 6 phases, then you'll realize that, and they don't necessarily come in any particular order, but you'll realize that they become a litmus test for, where am I with this person? Where am I going? And so if you want them, I'll email them to you. I'll text them to you. Whatever that is, go ahead and ask me for it in the chat. Ask me for the 6 phases of faith, and I'll tell you what they are, and I'll get them to you. But by and large, they really are about making sure that you've done everything you can to pay attention to each other, to create a sense of intimacy and further acceptance, to demonstrate that you are a person of integrity and you respect that other person in the situation, and that your values, and show how your values are aligned to one another. And you'll keep that closeness going. You'll keep it moving forward, and everybody will acknowledge it, understand it, know it, believe it. And you will find that relationship is something that you can use that will enlighten you, that will create opportunities for you. So you want to make sure you do that. The last thing we want to talk about today is nurturing proactive values. 2 words that are very, very important in that phrase. Before we get into it, let's talk about it. Why would you think it's important to nurture proactive values in your professional relationships? Why do you think that? If you have a thought, idea, throw it in the chat. Let me know what you're thinking out there. Because I find that people tend to have a lot of biases with one another. We have a lot of prejudices with one another. We tend to put people in boxes and categories because we want to, that's how our brain kind of organizes information. And sometimes people are information to us. And so we put them in categories and boxes, and that's where they are until we release them from that category. We release them from that box because we allow ourselves to think of them as individuals, as human beings, as persons with their own personality, their own gifts, their own talents, their own special place on the planet. And I would think that the more we think about people in that regard, the more we start to delve into the individual personalities of the people that are surrounding us, the less likely we are to assign them just a category and our assumptions about that category. Like when we say good father, right? For all of us who's thinking about what a good father is, it either was or wasn't our own father. In our minds, like, okay, this is what I know most about this because this is what I engaged about this process with somebody, or didn't engage with the process about somebody, or was abused somehow, some way, emotionally or physically by just somebody who was a father figure, right? And so that brand, that image, when we begin to understand who a person is kind of is your first impression. And it's hard. Once you've made that impression, or what you think that impression is, it's hard to get out of it. You know, you think of a person as a father and they never thought of themselves as a father. And so that brand doesn't fit with them. Even if they have children biologically, they are a father. But emotionally, socially, maybe not. And maybe they're not a good one. Maybe they don't want to be a good one. Maybe they could care less. You kind of want to need to know that before you put them in that box, right? Before you assign that category, because then they're going to say something to you about their kid, and you can be like, oh my God, you said that about your kid, or this is happening. You responded this way. You're a terrible person. No, I'm just a terrible father. That's a different thing, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that's not a whole person, right? So I think sometimes we use these exercises and we communicate with each other, but we communicate with each other so we can put ourselves in categories and boxes, so that we can feel like we understand that person and move them into whatever category we want to move them into. And that's not a good way of building a relationship, because if the minute you need to see somebody in a professional relationship with you, that means you're going to need to work with them. You're going to need to spend time with them. You're going to need to share resources with them. You're going to need to develop your skills and talents with them, because of them, around them. Then they're not just a person that you put in a box, right? They're not just a woman. They're not just a mother. They're not just a wife. They're not just a title, right? They are much more than that. They have many roles, and they have many ways that they're going to interpret all those roles, and that make up who and what they are. And you have to be willing and interested to find that out before you can be proactive with this relationship, with the values that you have. Now, I know they're going to work, by the way. Now, when I say being proactive with your values, am I talking about changing your values and being flexible with your values because somebody else needs you to be? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order to understand and in order to engage those values, you need to do that proactively so that people can see who you are beyond their preconceived notion, beyond their assumption of who you are. Because if you let, if you validate somehow a negative perception about you, then what happens is that person now feels validated that they're right, and everybody who looks like you, thinks like you, talks like you, is the same size you are, is probably going to be the same as you are. And their brains are not going to do the extra work it's going to take to separate from that bias, separate from that prejudice, and then go deep enough with you to find out who you are and not that the stereotype of you is. I see it happen all the time. People think that all Black people can sing and dance, because a lot of us really can't. That's true. A lot of white people can sing and dance too. But a lot of Black people can sing and dance. And a lot of Black people enjoy it as a cultural experience. It's a part of the culture, so to speak. Now, having said that, a lot of us who can't do none of that, who can't sing or dance. And if a person is trying to figure it out, they may take a music class, or they may join a choir just to see if they got the right stuff, if they can pull it together. Now, because they belong to a choir does not mean necessarily that they can sing or are comfortable singing, and if you put them on Front Street and on blast, so to speak, and go, hey, I need you to sing. They may not be comfortable with that. And your assumption that all Black people can sing, and I heard that you were in a choir, so you must be able to sing, so why don't you sing for us? You may have done something or said something that's going to take that person that relationship in the wrong direction. Because that person may go, well, yeah, I am in a choir. Yes, I am in a band. Yes, I do belong to a dance troupe, but I'm really not that good. I'm really not comfortable. I'm really trying it out. I'm not sure if I don't really want to broadcast that. Please don't tell anyone else. And please don't ask me to perform. just because I do perform doesn't mean I love it or I enjoy it, right? So you just think about that, before you take a stereotype and run the Boston with it. There was a time when, very recently, where the Irish folk dance traditions were just global. It was a globalized phenomenon. Everybody was doing, the river dance, so to speak. Everybody was, it seemed like it was everywhere. And so I think everybody with a background that was white and Irish, I thought maybe they could river dance. And I would naively ask the question, can you river dance? And people go, well, no. Or sometimes it was, hell no. And why are you asking me? Just because I'm Irish? That doesn't mean I can river dance. Or whatever preconceived assumptions that we have been taught about a group or a category, or we see or think or believe. And so it's very sensitive information. When you bump into that cultural stuff, you got to be sensitive to it. And yes, like Natasha said, you have to have respect. Now, it's great if respect is mutual. But if one of your values is proactively, I respect everyone, whether or not I get it back, I respect everyone as a proactive value, that means you're more likely to get it back because you're willing to engage with it up front. And I will tell you that any investments that you make with a person, any emotional investments or social investments you make with people, you don't necessarily get them back from that person right away, but you do get validated in your own character right away. And that's what I meant when I said being proactive with your values means you have to practice your values. You have to exercise your values. You have to do things that give you a chance for your values to live in your active everyday life. If you do that, then you're validating yourself, because more often than not, good things are going to happen. Good things are going to come back. Now, if your values are good, that's what's going to happen. Now, if your values are bad, just the opposite is going to happen. And you're going to realize that's a bad value. I probably should change that. There's something that's not working, and maybe I am not actively being proactive pursuing my highest values. Maybe I'm not engaging in a way that people can see authentically the truth of my character because I'm practicing my values. And if that's not happening, I think that, when it comes to people kind of, they're going to make assumptions about you right off the bat, no matter who you are, no matter what you are. You're going to have people going to make assumptions about you. And the minute you come outside of the assumptions that they're making for you, now they're going to really pay attention to you. So because you've shaken them for a little bit, they're like, wait a minute, I thought this was this, but now I realize it's that. I don't know how many of you have seen the episode. There was a Bugs Bunny episode I used to watch growing up, and where Pepe Le Pew, who was a skunk, would paint himself to look like a cat, right? And the cat couldn't tell the difference between cat and the skunk that got up close. And all of a sudden now Tom is like, wait a minute. Tom the cat was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. You're not a cat. You are a skunk. And I don't want to be anywhere near you, right? Sometimes that's true with people. Sometimes people put the mask on and the real them doesn't show up. And I'm going to suggest to you, the more authentic you are in yourself, the more authentic you are in your own character, the more brave you are with that, the more courage you have to be your authentic self everywhere you are, everywhere you go, you're going to reap the benefits of that in terms of feedback from other people, whether it's verbal feedback or nonverbal feedback. You're going to reap the benefits of that, and you're going to be able to go, okay, this is not working. I need to reassess my values. I need to understand which values of mine kind of got in the way of me interacting with that person. And you don't know until you engage with that person in a real, authentic way and ask the question: did I do something wrong? Did I say something that kind of didn't work with you? If so, please tell me, because I want to know. I want to know because I want to make sure this relationship is a useful one and is a great one for you. And if I did something that took it to the left or in the wrong direction, I apologize. Back to what we said earlier, it's critically important. So now, the 5 areas that I mentioned to you, and we can go deep in any one of these areas. There's so much more to share with you, and I do share these thoughts, ideas, when I'm in workshop with people, because we got some time and we can really workshop it out. If there's anything that I share with you, anything that you want to know more about, go ahead and put that in the chat. Go ahead and tell me what it is. And if I can't answer the question or put some ideas behind it right now, I promise you I will in a later episode, and I'll let you know when that's going to be. And while you're thinking and writing, hopefully, I want to share with you what we're going to be talking about next week. We covered the first 5 areas that I want to talk to you about when it comes to maximizing the value of professional relationship. And next week, we're going to cover another 5 areas. Next week, we're going to talk about the importance of communicating effectively. And then we're going to talk about how to find people who are super promoters for you, people who can put you on the right stages, in the right areas, in the right arenas, with the right language and the right effort, everything for you to shine. And then we're going to talk about refreshing your inner circle. How do you get rid of the knuckleheads in your inner circle, and how do you embrace and bring in new people into your inner circle, right? And the values that you need to embrace that. And then we're going to talk about adding an advisory council. How do you create an advisory council? How do you recruit them? How do you maintain that? How do you keep that going? And we're going to talk about developing the collaborative mindset. What is that all about? How do you get there? How special it is? And what do you need to do to maintain that? All of that next week at Coffee to You and Me, from every Friday from 3 to 5. We're going to be going deep. We're going to take a deep dive into as much material and information as we possibly can. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, anything you're concerned about when it comes to the small business arena, when it comes to PPP, or anything that's going on with COVID-19, anything that you want to know about, think about, care about, want to talk about, go ahead and throw that out in the chat. All right. And networking, you want to hear a little bit more about networking as an introvert. I see you out there, Tasha. Do you have a specific question? Because if you have a specific question, then we can go there probably right now. But if it's general and broad, then I'll probably do a whole special section dedicated to just what does it take to be an introvert? How do you network as an introvert, and how do you max that thing out? Because we really could do a whole hour on that. I gave it maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes today. So if there's something specific in mind or problem that you have, feel free to load that up, and let's see, maybe we can knock something out for you right away and create some energy around it. Because I talked about this, pretty much the strengths of being an introvert in terms of networking. And, those are things that you can always depend on. One, you're going to be a thinker, right? You're going to consider a lot more before you do anything. And that may halt you from doing things, which means you might need to recruit a partner to help you, jump in the fray. Go ahead and get in here. Go ahead and come on in. The water's fine, right? You may need to recruit somebody. I figured out my own system and process. I'm interested in what yours might be. Well, yeah. Okay, so when I created the 9 steps, and this is funny, when I created the 9 steps, I created 9 steps first for me. What is it you have to do to become magical in networking? And, for those of us who are in the roundtable, those are available to you in our Google Drive. I hear you. I hear you. And it's very important. And how do you make follow-up important? I'll get there, because you may think intrinsically, well, I should follow up. But it's much easier to follow up on a promise that you made versus a general, I'm supposed to follow up because I got a whole bunch of people in the net. I got a whole bunch of people who said yes. So now I got to follow up, right? That's a different kind of follow-up than if I had a specific person who I made a commitment to do. I'm going to follow up a lot better, a lot sooner, and with a lot more emphasis on following up. But now, let's say I recruited a whole bunch of people into sort of the funnel, the sales funnel, or whatever that was to do whatever I wanted to do next with them, right? and I don't know these people, and they're not somebody that I'm necessarily personally, professionally interested in. I'm still trying to feel that out. There's a whole bunch of people. But now my promise to those people are going to be, I have to approach that just as seriously. Because even if I promised 20 people that I was going to do something specific, what I'm also going to do is promise them that I'm going to ask them for their feedback on whatever it is I'm going to do. And I'm going to let them know how important their feedback is to me, even if it doesn't seem to me that it's important. Because that's my system, right? I realize that if I don't ask for feedback, if I don't get used to it, because I don't really want it, but I know I need it, so I have to force myself to ask for it right up front as much as possible, because I'm not going to go get it on the back end. I'm not going to follow up and get the feedback later on that I need to be better. And so I need people who care about me to sort of literally force it on me, to tell me. I was like, and I got to give them permission. I got to say, listen. And another thing I do sometimes is I'm not good at follow up in general. I'm not good at it either, but I am in specific. And so I try to make all of my follow up as specific as possible for myself first, because that's how I'm going to make it important. If it's not important to me, it's not going to be important for me. I'm not going to do it. If I'm just doing it because I'm supposed to, I'm not going to do it. But if I'm doing it because I need to, because according to my plan, right, I got to get to this level and to this information or to this notion or to this goal, to this stuff that's according to my plan, then I need to do it, because I've showed my plan to people in my inner circle who are going to hold me accountable for the action and the activity. So I got it. It becomes, see, it's about creating that sense of urgency. And the more people you tell what you're up to, the more you create that sense of urgency. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm going to put myself in a stressful situation. Yes. And in this case, in this regard, stress is good. It's good because it's the stress that's going to keep you moving forward. It's not the stress that's going to make you panic and paranoid or whatever. It's the stress. It's the good stress. You know, my good fraternity brother used to be a congressman, recently passed, John Lewis, would say there is a notion such a thing as good trouble, right? There's good stress as well. You know, there's putting yourself in a situation where you know it's a stretch for you, but it's a good stretch. It's a stretch that you need to make happen in order to grow, right? If you don't have accountability for it, as an introvert, it's not likely that we're going to stretch ourselves beyond our comfort zone in a way that we can hold ourselves accountable to other people, because we don't really value that a lot. And I'd have to say that, I know I don't, but I have to force myself to, and then that makes me go, okay, well, I don't want to let that person down now, because I made a commitment, I made a promise. And my values in terms of being honorable and trustworthy and having integrity won't allow me to disappoint someone else, because actually it's a disappointment to me, which I don't have. I can't have that. I can't be disappointed in myself. And so I'll step up and I'll perform. You got to have little tricks that you play on yourself in that regard. And I hate to call it a trick, but it's just a leveraging tool that I will use. You know, I will create the accountability that I need outside of myself with people that I have honor and respect with, you know, and I will ask them to hold me accountable. And maybe I'll have a weekly phone call or a strategy session with them on a regular, consistent basis, where we'll review our things that we need to be accountable to each other with. And I'll build that in terms of my life. And that's going to make me get right on it right away, because I want to be able to check it off my list. I want to be able to tell my friend or my associate or my accountability partner, my buddy, whatever you want to call it. I want to be able to say, you know what? Remember we said I'm going to do that? I got that. I knocked that out already. Did it. Done. And here's what I learned. That's another trick I play with myself. Another part of my things. I always want to tell people, you know, that are in my inner circle, my accountability partners, my, you know, people that I count on, they count on me. I want to tell them, I want them to grow with me. So I'm going to tell them what I learned. That means I'm not doing what I do just for me. I'm doing what I'm doing to help others grow. right? When I create training for other people, when I create, skill drills and all that kind of stuff for other people, I don't do that just for me. I do that just for them. I do that also so I can get better at doing it. And the more plans I put in place, the more skill drills I put in place, the more clients I work with, the better I become as a coach, and the more comfortable I feel in this space, and the more sure I am of what I am saying and what I'm doing, because I have experience now, I have feedback. The more feedback you can get, the more experience you get, the more sure, more confident you have. So in everything, that's what you need to do. Try to build it up. Try to build up your feedback. Try to build up your experience. Just start small. This is another thing I do too. I used to do this back in the day. I would just start making random promises to people because I wasn't used to having to work with so many other people. And so I just started doing this. I'm going to learn how to make commitments and follow up and honor these commitments, and I'm going to get good at it. And so I just started making small commitments to people, just small things, little things that I wouldn't normally do. In fact, I wrote them down. Some of them I wrote down. One of them was here in this is my little daily task list reminder. For those of you who can't see, I'm trying to make sure I can't get the shine off it. Anyway, if you see at the bottom of my list, that's my list right there. And it's out of focus right now. Well, it says my daily task list at the top, and then the task at the bottom. Let me read them to you. Especially the ones that I have to continually remind myself to do all the time, because I'll forget to do it. If I don't forget to do it, I can't. It's not going to work, right? And so my whole goal is to become the best husband in the world. Like, I got to be the best husband ever. I had the best husband anybody ever had, right? So every day, I tell Kimberly and Kayla, Kayla's my daughter, Kimberly's my wife, that I love them. And I can't just tell them I love them. I got to show them I love them. I have to make sure they get it. They understand what that means to me, that I love them. I don't want to it's not just rote things I'm going to check off my box, because the practice for me is to demonstrate, not just say, but to demonstrate my love for both of them so they can never question it. On every day, I've done something not to indicate, but to prove and validate my love for them. I would not do it, had I not committed myself, 25 years ago to this relationship. How do I keep this commitment alive? How do I keep this commitment moving forward? How do I keep the understanding that I am never, ever, ever going to falter in this? Is I have to make it a part of my daily practice. And that's helped me be accountable to that. And anytime any of my girls, feel like, I'm short shrifting them in terms of my communication or whatever, they know that this is my ultimate goal, and they hold me accountable. It's like, what, Dad, you said this, but that doesn't feel like a loving thing to say. Are you sure you meant to say that way? And I go, oh, time out. That is not what I meant. Let me take responsibility for that. Let me fix that. And let's see what we can do to get this thing back on track in the right direction. And I make a promise and a commitment, and I start exercising, because every time you damage that commitment with somebody else, every time you damage that relationship with somebody else, you have to get back in and you have to re-promise and recommit and re-honor those commitments, and you'll find that the relationship can get right back on track, and it'll be like as if it never happened. But you can't do it if you don't take responsibility for it. If you push blame and shame on somebody else, you're not going to be able to say that you've done anything to move the relationship forward. You're going to be waiting for them to have acceptance, and waiting for them to apologize and then do the same thing. So you can not wait for them and just do it anyway. That's how you empower yourself to power the relationship to the next level. And forgiveness that's a whole different class, right? How do you do that? How do you do that well? And it takes a lot. It takes a lot, especially with people you have a significant emotional investment in. And once they've damaged you somehow, some way, it's kind of hard to get back on it and move the relationship forward. But it's doable. I know it's doable. It's just having the right systems in place and the right strategies. Okay, guys, it's 4:15, and I've been yapping a lot. I'm going to slow this down. I'm going to invite you all on next week. We're going to have Coffee Tea, you and me, but we're going to do something special. I think it's next week. I could be wrong. Let me check my calendar here real quick. Actually, today is the 5th. On the 19th, we're having a special business history for Black History Month. We have a special Black business gathering. And so I'm going to end this session early on Friday, the 19th, and at 4 o'clock I'm going to jump on another conference with a whole bunch of other. I'm on a panel discussion with a bunch of African American entrepreneurs and business owners, and we're going to be sharing a lot of love for any of my friends and my cohorts and roundtable members and anybody who enjoys hanging out with me for any brief of time. I would like to have you come on in, log in. I'll put the link here so that you can get to it, and that way we'll see you. If we don't have any other questions, any thoughts, any smart remarks, I'm gonna say goodbye in a few seconds. I hope for you guys enjoy it. I want to show you guys one last thing when I close out. I want to get your feedback for this. This is a wonderful video that my good friend put together for me, and I just want to get your feedback on it. What do you think about it? What does that imaging or branding say to you? What does it speak to you? When you see it, do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it's cute? Do you think it's ugly? Do you think it's, what? What do you think? If you have any thoughts, I would appreciate it. Put it in the chat and feedback. By the way, you can follow up on any of these episodes. You can see them on Facebook. You can see them on YouTube. You can go check the back episodes or the past episodes, and I'll be more than happy. Again, same stuff. Any questions that you have, just go ahead and put those in the chat. I will get those and we will talk about them, okay? And other than that, it was great to see you guys. I had a great time, and we're going to power this thing down, and have a good day, people.